Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the HooperCast. My name is Connor. My name is sometimes Hooper. Depends on who you are and if I know you. And if I don't call me either. Call me sir or good sir or, respected
Fine,
stranger.
gentleman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. That's good to know. I mean, I know you, so I guess I'll call you Hooper.
You can still call me sir and good sir. I won't turn down sir from people I know.
Oh, well, I don't know. That sounds weird.
You're grandfathered into informally greeting me.
I'm not gonna start saying yes, sir.
I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, that's not gonna
I'll
happen.
just tell you right now that I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna call you sir.
I have zero interest in calling you sir.
Well, that's Dustin, everybody. Hi, Dustin.
Hello, everybody.
Excuse me, I need another spoonful of beans.
Spoonful of beans helps Hooper's tummy settle.
Hopefully, all it's done is give it problems so far.
I'm having a grilled cheese right now.
I got body problems today, man. My tongue is all screwed up. My tummy is all screwed up.
Really?
It's a terrible day.
I had some super allergies yesterday. I'm feeling okay today.
Yeah. Man, I don't know what it is. I think I'm dying.
On my time hop from today, like 5 years ago, it said something like, I'm dying, allergies are awful. And I'm like, hey, I'm dying right now and allergies are awful.
Let's see. 5 years ago, I shaved my face 3 times in one day for some reason. I was attacked by fire ants, looks like.
Oh, and guess what we're talking about today, Hooper?
Oh, damn it. That's a really good transition.
It's such a good transition.
All right, we're going to talk about Ant-Man today.
Oh, Ant-Man! Best transition ever on the HooperCast.
We're going to talk about Ant-Man today on the podcast. This is going to be our main, probably sole topic. Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So today's Monday, July 20th. So we've just come off of the opening weekend of Ant-Man. This is I don't even know. Let's just call it the 11th film in the MCU. It's probably not.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it? Hold on, Dustin.
Okay.
Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, Incredible Hulk, Avengers, Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Cap 2, Guardians, Ultron. Oh, it's the 12th.
Oh, so close.
Well, if you don't count the Incredible Hulk, which
You should add in The Price is Right, like Lost sound. Dun, 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 dun.
So yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about some Ant-Man today. Do you want to do a spoiler one? There's not really much to spoil, to be quite honest. So I feel like we can talk about this film pretty much without borders, without really spoiling.
Yeah,
anything.
we're gonna be. Let's be pretty open about it. That way,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're super paranoid about spoilers, then come back and check us out after you see it. But
Yeah.
but there's really nothing that is gonna be like, oh, mind blowing.
Well, there's things like with these Marvel films, for the most part, that, I mean, this is Ant-Man. This is the premiere film for this character. Paul Rudd's not going to die.
Right.
Dustin, just because I know both of our thoughts, I'd like to give my brief thoughts first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I really enjoyed this film. This is I'm looking at how well it's doing on the tomato meter right now, just to sort of tell people how popularly it's doing. The critics are giving it a 79%.
That's not bad.
Pretty good these days.
Yeah.
The audience is giving it a 92. So it's been
That's even better.
It's been it's been a real. I don't know how much money it made, Dustin. Maybe you can look up those numbers.
I think I looked it up. I think it was 58 million.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
You keep talking. Let me
tell me.
check.
I'd like to know where it is in the top 5 and all that. But I really enjoyed this film. I thought this had the potential to be a train wreck because this was going to be an Edgar Wright movie.
Trainwreck was a different movie that came out this week.
That's.
I'm just going at it with these transitions.
You must have had some alpha brain before you did this.
I know, some segues up in here.
Dustin,
Yeah, 58 million.
58 million. Was it what's its rank on the box
It's number
office?
1.
It's number 1. Okay.
Yeah.
How'd Trainwreck do?
Trainwreck was number 3. Minions was number 2, which I believe is in its second week.
So,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, so number 1, it's opening weekend. That's pretty good. That's It's very good. I mean,
it can't get better.
That's a cold parenting response. Like, Dad, I won the gold medal to track meet. That's pretty good.
That's all right, I guess.
I literally couldn't have done better. Well, it's just all right.
We'll see about that.
Go get me another beer. This had the potential to be a lot worse because Edgar Wright left the project at a certain point. We can talk about that a little later, I guess, or not. I don't really care. And they brought in, they cast Paul Rudd, and they brought in him and Adam McKay, who you may know as the Anchorman movie director and Step Brothers, and him and Will Ferrell kind of started Funny or Die. He's a comedy guy, so him and Paul Rudd came in and basically did a pass on the script. So Edgar Wright, Joe Cornish, Adam McKay, and Paul Rudd all share screenwriting credit for this film because it went through some changes essentially when Peyton Reed came on board. So that was my only real trepidation coming into this film was, is this going to turn out okay? And I thought it turned out really well. I think in terms of scale, it's probably the smallest in scale, both literally with him being the size of an ant, but also creatively or figuratively, rather. Whereas we haven't seen the stakes confined to a building, an area as small as a building, essentially, in quite a while with these Marvel films. I think the last time the stakes were this small was probably the first Iron Man. Where the whole climax it took place in Los Angeles, and there were people sort of marginally in danger, but there was no big device that was going to kill people, like cause mass genocide. It was, hey, if I don't stop Obadiah, then bad things will happen. So with every movie since then, it's been some sort of like last second stop this crisis right now sort of thing. Yeah. Especially in the Avengers films. Mm-hmm. And so this is another one of those films where it's like, okay, so if he doesn't stop the Yellow Jacket, nothing will happen today, but he'll sell all the suits to Hydra, and things will happen later on, maybe in a few months. Mm-hmm. So it felt appropriately dangerous, but not. It wasn't inundated with this global catastrophe pending and putting it all on the shoulders of a guy who learned how to use this suit maybe a few weeks ago. So I appreciate that because I didn't think a bigger threat or scale would have been appropriate for this film. But I really enjoyed the action. I really enjoyed everything they did with his powers, how he can shrink and I've wondered, would it be tough to be able to see him? And they make it so that you can see him even when he's small if you're looking in the right spot. Because I thought, like, are they just going to have the actors just mime being punched and is it going to look dumb? But they did a real good job. And especially when he's small, a lot of some of those shots are accomplished by micro photography. So those are real small cameras that they're actually using as background plates for him to key Paul Rudd onto later, Right. So I really like that this is a film where the story and the characters sort of dictated how it would be shot. And so for that reason, and in terms of the scale, and just because he's a new character and completely, I feel like this film, as a standalone, stands out pretty well. I definitely like it more than both the Thor movies. I think John said he liked it even more than the first Captain America. I don't quite know about that. I prefer watching Steve Rogers to this guy, but I like Scott Lang because he's a guy who's made mistakes and now he wants to do better. So he's a character, at least on a basic level, you can root for. I don't want to reveal too much because I don't know how Dustin feels about Scott Lang. I know how he may feel about the villain, though. So the only thing I will say is that
unpredictable.
Yes, I think the villain was appropriate for the scale of this film, because if he was going to be like the leader of some alien army or something, and he was this guy Darren Cross, I'd be pretty disappointed because I'd think, well, how in the world did this guy achieve power? Because he's so thinly written and he has there's nothing about him that makes me believe that he could command all these people. But I believe that he could be this crazy driven CEO scientist dude who again can only who's going to plan something that's bad, but he doesn't have the means to do anything bad right now outside of this suit. So I thought that he was probably in the grand scale of villains pretty thin, But it's not like it's Malekith in the Thor movies where this guy's going to do terrible things, but I don't know anything about him, nor do I care.
Right. No, I agree with that.
I don't think he's a good villain, but I don't think he was necessarily inappropriate for this film, I guess. Okay. But if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't have that many feelings about him. He was adequate.
Sure.
I was there to see Paul Rudd. I was there to see what the suit could do, and I was pretty happy. The last thing I'll say, because I need to let you talk, Dustin. I'm glad that for the most part, save for one obvious section of the film, I was pretty glad that it stayed away from setting up Civil War, except for the stingers.
Sure.
There's the section of the film where he goes to the Avengers headquarters, but that doesn't even have anything to do with Civil War. That's just a little. Right. That's just one of those things where it should be in the movie because they exist in the same universe, but they didn't waste too much time there. He still was there to do a thing outside of what he did, trying to get that thing. It was still part of the plot. So sure. I appreciated that they didn't rely on that too much. So anyway, let me let you talk, Dustin. Overall, I liked the film. I thought they did a good job with it, and we'll see what they do with him in upcoming movies. It'll be interesting to see him dance around and punch the Hulk in the face or something. I don't know.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, all right, Dustin, have at it.
Well, essentially, for me, it was a matter of. I didn't think the film was bad, but I also didn't think it was excellent. I was in between on it. So, I guess if you were going to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, it would probably be like a 6 or maybe a 7. Just because probably a 7. I mean, it's not bad. I guess to me, the biggest flaw of the film is that it was kind of generic. And what I mean by that is the way it was shot, the direction, didn't have much style. It was shot like a comedy, but it shouldn't have been. It didn't have much pizzazz in terms of dialogue. I'm getting really, I think, burned out on characters like, his Scott Lang's little thieving buddies.
His band of thieves.
Yeah, this was one of the problems with the Green Lantern too. They had to give him this, urban kind of a buddy, and I'm like, but this doesn't you don't need it. You've got so many characters already, and I've got to get to know them right now because really Michael Peña's character isn't going to, I would imagine, be in any of the Avengers movies. So I feel like we need to be focusing on Hank and on Scott and on Hope, and they can be there, but you got to minimize the time with them. And it just seemed like a very obvious kind of a thing to do because that's what you do in comedies is you populate it with side characters that have a goofy trait that they can carry through the film. So it was very comedy, generic to me in that way. But yeah, I think just in its style and even in its plot, I felt like it was fairly generic. I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about the villain. I had this throughout the film feeling like I've seen this before, and it's really just Obadiah Stane done all over again.
Yeah, there's a reason I mentioned Obadiah Stane specifically.
Yeah, it really is. He's bald, everything. I mean, it's just I like Jeff Bridges way better.
I literally did not make that connection though. That seems, now I feel stupid.
I mean, if they gave this guy a beard, then it would be super obvious. But it felt like what they were trying to do was, sort of the Iron Man kind of a thing where let's take this character that nobody really knows, nobody really cares about, and make him relatable and likable. And to me, it was less interesting than Iron Man, mainly because Scott Lang is less interesting than Tony Stark.
He is. He is.
And even Hank Pym is less interesting than Tony Stark. But I would have, between Hank and Scott, I think Hank is the better character. And that's a detriment to the film. Scott is he's got this thing, right? If you were going to talk about his character, maybe the first thing you would talk about is his devotion to his daughter. Mm-hmm. And that's great. But to be fair, that's not a unique character trait. I mean, pretty much all on-screen parents have that trait.
Except for the track dad I just mentioned.
Right, and every Spielberg movie ever. But yeah, I mean, that's not a unique character trait, so it's hard to say, like, that's a great thing. So then you talk about his other traits. But I'm hard-pressed to find them. I know he doesn't like violence, but he kind of does a good bit of fighting. I know he doesn't like to steal, but he does. I don't really know why. I'm just a little hard. It's difficult for me to find a character in this person. To me, he was just kind of boring, and to be fair, he was funny, but it was more like the funny of a writer wants to give the audience a kick rather than this is just a funny character. Mm-hmm. For me, so it's not that it wasn't funny; it was just that it felt like a more obvious funny. Than something like, even Guardians of the Galaxy felt more organically funny. So anyway, but yeah, Scott was not a super interesting character. A lot of the movie I felt was telegraphed. So you have these moments where he says something about his daughter, or his Hank Pym says something about his wife, and then Hope says, "When are you going to stop telling me that lie?" And I'm thinking, probably in the next 30 minutes, I would assume.
Certainly by the end of the film, right?
Right. And then you have things like, the quantum realm. Let me tell you about this real quick. And I'm like, okay, so I know we're going to end up in the quantum realm.
Right.
Great.
That was the one thing that when he said, "Don't mess with the regulator, you'll go into a quantum realm," something about time and space. And I thought, okay, so we're going to go to the quantum realm at some point. But two, time and space? What does getting super, super small have to do with time and space?
Yeah, it's strange.
I understand getting smaller forever, but why does that put you into this this limbo?
Right. Yeah,
so I'm glad they didn't do anything, because I thought, like, oh, if he gets smaller and smaller, is he gonna time travel back to before his first prison sentence or something and start? I thought that was going to turn out a lot worse.
Sure, yeah.
But
no, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
But then if they weren't even going to do it, then why mention time and space?
Yeah.
I guess they want to leave the
possibility
open.
Yeah. And then maybe another fault I think of the film is something that I think you talked about positively, which to me was the stakes of the film. I didn't feel like they were high. We didn't find out until the third act that it was even Hydra that he was dealing with. We didn't find out what really. I mean, we know, okay, Hank doesn't want the Yellow Jacket to be a thing because of reasons that this guy seems crazy, but I don't really have a clear idea of what the stakes are, and if the mission to break in and steal it or whatever fails, what's going to happen? Like, immediately, what are the short-term problems that will arise because of the failure? And I'd never felt a sense of urgency about it. In fact, they had enough time to like give me this B story with another Avenger, and that to me detracted from the sense of urgency. Because here's a thing that isn't really a part of this film. It's almost like an advertisement for another film or a reminder of another film. And to me, it didn't flow very well. I mean, of all the places that this one unique item that they needed was, it had to be there. It just broke the pace of the film for me. And I know sometimes I say, like, okay, well, they didn't mention Avengers, like in Daredevil. I'm like, the connection wasn't strong enough. And then I'm like, oh, but here it's too strong because you did too much with them. So I know I'm just being difficult to please, but, I don't know. I guess I just felt like in this film, I don't need you to remind me that we're a part of a larger universe right now, but I need you to, because the SHIELD thing at the beginning was enough. Like, if they never mentioned another thing other than the fact that Hank had dealings with SHIELD, and we saw Peggy and we saw John Slattery, that was enough. Like, I didn't need anything else. I didn't need a fight scene. I didn't need any of that. So all of this kind of just compounded to feel like one of two things. Either you're using this film to advertise something that's coming, or you're using other films to justify this film. And either way, I don't like it. So anyway, but that may just be, it's like I've said before, the cinematic universe is the best and worst thing that's happened to film, to superhero films. And I think this is an example of the worst because I don't know what I would prefer. Would I prefer a smaller connection or a bigger connection? Because I've had it both ways and I didn't like either one. So I'm not sure at this point what I want. But it's neither of those things. Anyway, long story short, I guess it just felt generic. The everything that happened was sort of telegraphed in advance, and so it was predictable. The character of Scott Lang, they didn't give me enough about him to assume that after this mission is over, he's going to continue wearing that suit and continue doing things. It's not like, I don't know, an Iron Man kind of a guy, or let's just use Spider-Man, for example. With Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. After I defeat Green Goblin, there's still going to be jewel thieves. There's still going to be burglars. There's still going to be people who are mean and need to be brought to justice. And I have the power, so I'm going to do it. That gives me the sense that a sequel is always warranted with Spider-Man. But with Ant-Man, I didn't feel like they did a good enough job of explaining to me that either Scott loved being Ant-Man so much he's going to keep doing it, or that the city or the world needs Ant-Man so much that he's going to keep doing it. I never got either of those. So a sequel doesn't feel as warranted as I feel like it should, because there's going to be a sequel. It says Ant-Man will return. So, but why? Is it just because Anthony Mackie asks him to, or what?
So far it appears that way to me, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, which isn't a very strong motivation for a character to keep doing what he's doing. Just because then you're setting up the fact that every time we see an Ant-Man movie, someone's going to have to ask him to be Ant-Man. It's not like in between movies he's being Ant-Man still.
And he'll go, all right,
I guess I will. So for all of these reasons, I didn't find the film as enjoyable as I feel like I wanted to, or as I you know, because Ant-Man's such a strange concept. It could be done really, really cool and, like, be different. But I felt like it aped a lot of the original Iron Man film and didn't, just in its generic kind of tone and generic comedy, you know, almost television-type directing, didn't set it apart. And it's like I told my girlfriend when we saw the film, the stinger at the end, this is a spoiler, so if you really don't want this part, skip
it's also
forward.
a pun.
It is. The stinger at the end has Captain America and Falcon with Bucky, and that scene, I don't know who directed it, but that scene, that short little bit, was better directed than the entirety of Ant-Man. To me, it had more style, it looked more professional, more cinematic than Ant-Man did, and to me fit better in with the Marvel universe than this did.
John told me, I think that might be an actual scene from Civil War.
It could be.
Kind
so it could
of
be the
like,
Russos.
yeah, so it could be because the Russos are directing it, which would explain why it's so good. I think like in a similar way that at the end of Iron Man 2 and Coulson's out in the desert, he's like, "Sir, we found it," and there's the hammer.
Oh yeah,
and like he actually makes that phone call in the Thor movie.
The movie. Yeah,
so,
okay. That makes sense.
we may see like a slightly different version of that scene next summer.
Okay, well that's cool.
That would explain the style.
Yeah, sure. But I felt like it had more style, and it really kind of highlighted one of the problems I had with the film was just that it didn't have a style. I didn't think, and so when you pair together a generic story and generic direction with a generic character that doesn't, to me, have much of a reason to continue being Ant-Man, and you pair that with things like I've already seen this before feelings, and I don't need to be reminded of Falcon in this movie feelings, and all of these things, it comes together not to be a bad movie, but just to be like a placeholder or like well, we want to use Ant-Man later, so we need to do something with him now so that they know about him later. And it didn't feel like it was an earned, warranted solo film. It felt more like, well, we just have to because later we're going to want to use him. And so to me, it was just altogether a little disappointing to see the character done that way. But, like I said, it's not a bad movie, and I would certainly see it again. It's just, when you compare it to something like Winter Soldier or Guardians that has a clear tone and a clear directorial style, this one kind of falls short. And not to mention, I will say this too, as far as the direction goes, that scene at the Avengers headquarters, that fight scene, I thought was one of the worst directed fight scenes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know it's got to be tough to keep track of something so small and Falcon on in a frame or whatever, but there were times where I just didn't know what was going on. And so I don't know. There were a lot of problems that I had with it. And I hate to always be that guy with these movies, but it just feels like these characters in and of themselves are great, and they just need somebody in there that believes in them. And maybe Edgar Wright could have been that person. I know he worked on the film for a long time, but to me it just felt like almost like, okay, well, we started, so we have to finish. Rather than we all have a genuine passion for this and for making this happen. And I did get that with Winter Soldier. And I did get that with Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's strange to me to feel the way that I feel about it. But and I didn't even mention, too, other than the villain being like Obadiah Stane, I didn't understand his problem in that, okay, he felt slighted by his mentor. Okay, that's fine. That's a good character motivation to do something weird. But then they mentioned at some point in the film, offhandedly, that the PIM particle or whatever will mess with your mind in some way, psychologically. Mm-hmm. But for some reason didn't with Hank or Scott. And then we see the scene where Darren Cross is going to sell to Hydra. And somebody says, this isn't you, it's affecting your mind or something. And I'm thinking, how? He hasn't used it yet. As far as we know, he has not used it on himself. So how is it affecting his mind? And Evangeline Lilly's character says, Darren, you're sick. I can help you. And I'm thinking, this feels out of place. This feels like there was a scene that I missed. Because you're saying he's sick, which implies that he's already used the formula on himself, but we've never seen him do it. And so it's just little things like that where I felt like the screenplay was jumbled together from bits and pieces of other things and didn't quite flow together right to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking into it too much, but it's just little things like that not to mention, okay, this is I guess a nitpick, but Scott is Ant-Man, and he's coming down that little chute where the laser grid is, where he's going to go in and steal the Yellow Jacket costume. Mm-hmm. And the dude from the Dark Knight hits the button, and the grid disappears, and he falls down into the thing right as Darren Cross grabs the Yellow Jacket costume. And I'm like, how did you know he was there? How did you know Ant-Man was there? I don't understand. And it's a lot of little things like that throughout the film that made me think either I missed something or the filmmakers did.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So I don't know. Like I said, it isn't a bad movie, and I would watch it again. It's just I felt like it could have been done better. Now, having said all that, I am looking forward to seeing Ant-Man as a part of the Avengers, as opposed to someone like Daredevil, who I just feel like is so far apart that should he ever team up with Tony, it would feel weird. This, I don't feel that way. I feel like it would flow well and it would work well.
I agree.
So I have no problem with that. And I have no doubt that over time the Scott Lang character will be built into something better. And even the Hope character will be utilized in a more fulfilling way. So I don't have a doubt that it will get better. But as for this film, I felt like it wasn't, to me, a super awesome great start.
We will have to
agree to disagree.
Probably.
Give me a rebuttal.
I literally, this is one of those things where it's like, okay, I can either listen to Dustin or I can write down counterpoints, but I can't do both.
Right. I got you.
I'll have to listen to this after it's up and go, oh, I should have. Oh.
Yeah.
No, I there are a few times where I felt like, I guess like with Michael Pena, I know what you're getting at with him, but I thought that there were times where he was too goofy. Like it's just like, okay, I got it. But I don't know. I just thought that little touches, like whenever he tells a story and they go back to the actors and they have him lip syncing everything he's saying in the story. I thought those are little, but that's not really. I thought they were appropriate for this film. That's more just like, oh, that's pretty funny.
No, it is funny.
So I can give it like a half point for this film because this is where it happens, but not because it works especially well for this movie.
Sure. And I guess my point for that is not that he's there or that they're a part of it in some way, but that rather I guess that they helped him in his mission because it makes them feel like an integral part to the Ant-Man character.
Right.
Which then moving forward and knowing they're probably not all going to be in the Avengers feels weird.
Kind of like that was the thing about the first Captain America with the Howling Commandos. It was like, I like these guys, but I'm kind of glad they're not going to get frozen too because, I mean, I like them, but I don't want to see them every time I see Captain America.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I think I didn't think their role would be a lot more sinister or anything. I just figured that they were going to serve mostly as this temptation to him of like, hey, come on, dude, being like, I just got past, season 2 of Friday Night Lights in which Santiago's friends tell him what a bitch he is for living with Buddy Garrity and playing football and not being, I don't know Mexican slang. Not being, one of the guys again, a part of their crew, like he's somehow less of a man because he's cleaned up. Sure. And so I was sort of excited to have that same temptation in front of Scott Lang because it can create tension in the movie of, oh, this is gonna, but then when he finally accepts the job, which ends up being to steal the Ant-Man costume, then all the tension from their presence in the film is gone. So I thought, okay, well, if they're not here to serve as sort of like a soft antagonist to his character development, then what are they here for? And then when they are part of the final thing, I was like, again, I don't quite have a problem with this. It's a little weird that they'd all be on board. I would think that one of them would be. At least one of them would be criminal enough to be a mole for Darren Cross or something. You know what I mean? Like turn out maybe one of them, T.I. perhaps, or what's his face in The Dark Knight. But one of them be like, hey, I'm a criminal. Like I'm all for this noble cause, but I'm not a knight in shining armor. I'm a criminal who wants to get paid. Sorry. Yeah. I maybe that would have served it better. Because then you can have at least one of them be true to their original function in the film. Sure,
and you can also develop the character of Scott through that.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of times where I'm not 100% sure where Scott's mind is at in terms of, like, if he's on this quest for redemption, which, I believe he is. I'm not quite sure what he's thinking in terms of does he feel he's succeeding or does he feel like he's still trapped? And I'm not quite sure. And to have an antagonist like that, I think would have given me an idea of where his mind was at in those moments. Another example of this, I talked about this with my girlfriend, was as far as not knowing where Scott's mind is at, is you have that scene where he shows up at his daughter's birthday party and his her stepdad or whatever is there, and then you see his wife. And I'm not sure in those scenes, because you could play it a number of ways, but they didn't pick one. Is he still in love with his wife or not? Is he jealous of the man that is, now fathering his child or not? Is he mad or not? He never really, they never honed in on what he was feeling in those moments. And I don't think that was a fault of Paul Rudd, because I don't think it was written. I just don't think they had discussed, well, are you still in love with this woman? Because my girlfriend said she thought what was going to happen through the film was they were going to have that moment where she was like, clean up your life or whatever, and we'll talk about visitation. And she thought what would happen, and this is true, this would have been what would have happened in the 90s. Throughout the film, he would have become the Ant-Man or whatever, and she would have fallen for him again, and he would have reclaimed his, estranged wife. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know if that's what they were going for or what they were doing, because I didn't know where in that one scene. I read it as there's no connection. He doesn't care about his wife at all. But my girlfriend read it as he still wants to be with her in some way.
I don't think they want Paul Rudd to be a homewrecker in a Disney movie.
No, I don't think so either. But yeah, man, I don't know. I just felt like there were times where the character wasn't fully revealed to the audience when it should have been. Dude,
you know what would have happened if this was like an R-rated movie?
What?
This is not going the direction you think it is. He would have, during one of the fights, he would have flown into a dude's mouth or something, mm-hmm. and then run down his esophagus into his stomach and then become big again and just
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. Man. That would have been nuts.
Yeah, that would have been insane.
That would have been crazy.
Somewhere there's some freelance comic book artist that's going, ooh, and he's drawing it right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea, Hooper.
Yeah.
You're going to get a writing credit on it.
Oh, no, I won't get anything.
Just one day a check shows up in the mail. Thank you, Hooper, for your inspiration.
Oh, no, thank you, kind stranger. For my idea. Well, hopefully Civil War is to your liking, Dustin.
I think it will be because it focuses, A, on characters that I already know and love. Mm-hmm. And B, I think it'll be great to see character development in the movie, in that they're going to be very clear with their own goals and with their own desires and what they think is right, and to pit them against each other tells me about their character, and I think that's what I'll take from it.
I also think it'll satisfy your I guess your interest in the world before, at the beginning of the film and the end of the film being different. I'm sure we'll probably lose a couple of characters, and
I'm sure,
and certain things will be irreparably changed. So I think I think you'll get what you want. Well, as if you're the only one who wants it.
Right. But it's true.
We'll get that at a Civil War,
And the character of Steve Rogers has built into it, this interconnectedness of the universe. Mm-hmm. So I will have virtually no problem, I'm sure, with seeing all of the Avengers show up. Whereas in this film, you start it with S.H.I.E.L.D., that's great, but I didn't expect anything else. I mean, I knew Falcon was going to be in it because of stupid Facebook, but mm-hmm. The point is, I guess that the character of Scott Lang does not in and of itself say there's going to be other Avengers in this film. Not yet. And so I guess I didn't see a point in it, but what I'm saying is that with Steve Rogers, there's certainly the idea that there will be Avengers in it, and I have no problem with that. I have no problem with seeing Avengers. I hate to come across I don't want to see them in the movie, but what I'm I don't know. Does it make sense what I'm saying though?
I know what you mean. You like seeing them, but you don't want to see them for no reason.
Right. I want it to feel organic. I don't want it to feel like the writers shoehorned it in here to sell you on a property. It's not like, Wendy's is selling a really disgusting French fry, but they're like, but you like the Baconator, so if you pair them, it'll be great. And I'm like, oh, I think I'll buy the disgusting fries because I love the Baconator. Because, sometimes that's what Ant-Man felt like was, well, they don't believe enough in Ant-Man, so they threw in some other things so that I would accept it more.
I almost saw that, to be honest, as a time saver in the overall scheme. I do think it served the story. I disagree a bit with the Sam Wilson scene because mm-hmm. I think on a base level, and I'll include myself on this. Mm-hmm. I like seeing little reminders that, hey, this is all the same universe. You know, I actually
Sure.
prefer things like that to verbal reminders, because I think verbal reminders stick out more, even though they take less time and they're gone in a flash. I really didn't like Michael Douglas being like, well, they're too busy dropping cities out of the sky or something. And I'm like, oh, don't reference it so directly. But so I know it's a weird logic, because for him to spend 7 minutes at their headquarters fighting Falcon and speaking to him, I know I know my logic's a little weird on that, but at least in that scene, like, he was not aware it was the Avengers facility at the time.
Sure.
Just Michael Douglas used like a 2011 rendering of Google Maps or whatever on that warehouse,
Right.
And because he's old and they can't use the internet, you know, it shows up, and then. I felt like everything in that scene sort of made sense, and it also shows Scott's. Now, granted, they didn't go really any farther with his impulsivity, because everyone's telling him not to keep the mission going. He's like, "No, I'm going to get the mission going." But it shows that he's. I guess it showed his competency or his mettle when it came to fighting another. Like, it was almost like a test, like that showed you how far he had progressed in his skills of using the suit. I mean, good enough to fight Sam Wilson, escape him, steal the thing he came there to steal, and escape. Yeah. So I felt like it did serve the story, while also giving, you know, a little nod to the Avengers, and then setting up the whole Sam looking for him at the end, as opposed to just some random S.H.I.E.L.D. agent wanting to talk to him.
I gotcha.
I thought that was, and I guess for them it was an investment, because then they don't have to waste time in Civil War showing you that Ant-Man's on par with these people. They can just sort of refer back to, like, well, kicked his ass, so
right, exactly.
You know, I'm good enough at least to fight another human being with a suit. So
this is true. I mean, yeah, I certainly see what you're saying. I guess, you know, I just didn't buy it as easily, but
yeah.
But I think that's my own problem, because, like I said, I mean, I feel like I come down hard on these movies, but especially recently, or maybe just post Winter Soldier. I think Winter Soldier probably ruined me for a little while.
Yeah, I think it set the bar pretty high. It showed you how great these films could really be.
That's exactly right, because I love Steve Rogers, and I love Sam Wilson, and I love all of these characters, and I love the way that they interact. Winter Soldier, to me, is still the perfect example of everything working. Every single aspect of it, from casting to direction, everything was working perfect in that movie. And
it really was.
Then
it's such a great movie.
It is. And then you follow it up with a couple of movies like Age of Ultron or this, and it's just disappointing, because I've seen it work so well that now when something doesn't work, I'm thinking, oh, but it can work. And so maybe that's my problem, but it is my problem, because, like you said, it's got a 79 on Rotten Tomatoes, a 90 whatever from the audience.
From the audience,
people are digging this movie, and I can't knock that, because, like I said, it's not a stupid movie. It's not, you know, Transformers or whatever, where pretty much everybody says that's not very critically or artistically well done, as entertaining as it may be. But so I can't knock it, but at the same time, I can just say that for me, I want it to be better, and I want them to keep making me say that was better than the last one, and that was better than the last one, and that was better than the last one. And that hasn't happened in a couple movies now. So,
well, what I'm excited for with the future is that the Russos are in charge of the next 3 Marvel movies I'm most looking forward to, which is Civil War and the Infinity War movies.
Yes.
And then the rest of the movies I have not as much emotional attachment to, just because they're either the third Thor movie or their origin story or launch films for new characters, which I'm excited to see, much like this. You know, I mean, I think after a while seeing more Thor films or more Iron Man, it would get tiring to see the same characters go through trial after trial after trial. So it's nice to see new, fresh stories. And I'm kind of glad that I'm sort of glad we're in this transition period where I'm pretty sure the Russos are going to knock Civil War out of the park. I'm sure they'll do the same with the Infinity War movies, and I think the respective people they're hiring for these new films are going to be great too. My only concern with all that, I have nothing against Joss Whedon or Edgar Wright or what's her face who was going to do the Black Panther. They're all eventually chose to leave these projects, but. So far, I don't know what the woman. Forgive me, I don't know what her name is, but when she
Ava
left,
DuVernay.
Yeah, and so people were excited that she was going to be directing Black Panther. I don't know much about her, but she sounded like a great choice. And then she left over artistic differences. Okay, at least you left.
Right.
Same thing with Edgar Wright. Now I've already talked about this, but I feel like Joss Whedon sort of bitched about it. And I sort of thought he really complained like a little bitch about
he did
about the studio system and how he's but the thing is, because I feel like when it comes down to it, like, yeah, you're great and I love his work, but you're an employee of these people, and I think at a certain point you forgot why you were there in the first place. You forgot what you were hired to do.
Very unprofessional.
It was, and so I was a little disappointed with that. So I'm glad that they're hiring talented unknowns or talented little knowns for these films. I just hope that, the problem with that is you get these free-spirited directors in there that, well, I want to have all this freedom. It's like, okay, well, guess what? You're used to not working with a studio. You're going to get paid a shitload of money to work with a studio, and you're getting paid by us, and we picked you because we like what you do. Just remember that there are broad strokes you can't really cross because we have a fucking plan in mind.
Right.
And if they go, well, man, my vision, let's go, okay, well, why don't you envision yourself outside this office with no paycheck?
Right. Like, it's a lot like a television show. I mean, these people are guest directors. Like when Joss Whedon went in to direct an episode of The Office, he didn't go in and change everything and then complain that he was locked into the style of a mockumentary.
To a format.
Right.
Yeah.
When J.J. Abrams went in and did it, or Jason Reitman, they didn't complain because of that. But, now it just seems so commonplace to say, oh, well, Marvel, wants things done a specific way. I'm like, well, what did you expect?
Well, not only what did you expect from a studio, but I consider Marvel, at least from where I'm sitting, which, say what you will about where I'm sitting, but I from where I'm sitting, Marvel seems to be an exception to other studios. They seem to be really open to creative collaboration. They do, and I really think it's showing in their storytelling with these movies. I just feel like justifiably the only thing they're rigid about is their plan, because they have a lot of fucking plates spinning.
They do.
They're not going to let one jackass out of Pasadena show up and be like, "I'm just going to tear this plate down because I'm subversive." It's like, look. These are the broad strokes of the plot. This is where this character...
No, we're already contracted to give Robert Downey Jr. $50 million. I mean, we're going to do it. Yeah.
What if Iron Man, burned himself at the stake to protest global warming? It's like... Yeah. Are you insane?
Right, exactly, yeah.
And look, none of them are suggesting that, but they want to do this stuff, and it's like, that would normally be okay, but this has to work within... this larger story. Again, like you said, it's just like a television episode. You can't have Coach Taylor jump off a bridge. Who's going to coach the football team for the rest of the show?
Exactly. Yeah.
You can't just decide that that's what we're going to do with it. You're not a writer. You're the director. You're here to execute our plan. And again, please don't take this the wrong way. We picked you because we like you. We like your style, and we want you to put your style into this because we think that's the best way to do it. It'll look the best. Yeah, please take that as a compliment and try to just, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, you're right. The whole thing is a compliment. I mean, for Marvel to put Joss Whedon, this guy that's best known for television, in charge of a multi-million-dollar operation, that's a huge vote of confidence. Yes. And for him to come around and be like, yeah, well, I couldn't do stuff because of toys sales.
The flip side of the coin is this,
and women.
The flip side of which of the millions of coins you were paid.
Right, exactly. Like, just suck it up, do your job, promote it well, and then leave. And if you personally can't deal with that, then just say, you know what, I had a great time. The two movies that I helped make are, some of the highest grossing films of all time. I'm extremely proud of them. But it's time to split, and bye. So there's no reason to do any slandering of the company like I feel like he did. So anyway,
yeah, I mean, again, like I understand the position he was put in, but it was a bit unprofessional the way he went out, and I don't know. I think he felt torn. I think he felt like he was losing his cred with some of his fans, and so maybe he felt like he had to say something anti-corporate to get welcomed back
to justify himself. Yeah,
sure, but it's just like, look, I mean, the smart people get it. Like God, this sounds dumb. I'm one of those smart people. I understand why he's upset about his situation. I get it. I just feel like you could have done it a little bit more professionally. That's really it. So
no, I agree.
I'm excited for this universe. Again, this to me is the greatest thing that's going on to me right now in movies. Not like as a medium or anything anything profound like that. Just to me, these are the only films I see in theaters now.
And it's the benchmark of the modern blockbuster.
It really is. And so this is an interesting time right now with action movies or with these fun comic book movies. Again, like, they're not reinventing the wheel. I just think it's really cool to see essentially a macro version of television in the theaters across several years. I think that's pretty awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome to see all of your favorite characters come together and talk to one another.
Yeah, I know people see it, they only look at the business side of it and they get cynical about it, but this is cool. This is just cool to see. Like, this appeals to the little kid in me. This is why I like movies, because they're fun. And right now, these are some of the only movies out right now that are just purely fun. And that actually have some thought behind them. Yeah, and competence and direction and forethought.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, I completely agree with you on that 100%.
Well, I got to go.
Yeah, me too, man.
But yeah, this was a good episode. If you liked this episode, you can subscribe to us on iTunes. Actually, just search HooperCast. You can also find us on Podbean, HooperCastPod.podbean.com, Facebook.com/HooperCast, or at HooperCast on Twitter. Also, HooperCastPod.tumblr.com and HooperCastPod.blogspot.com. Both of which you can donate to a PayPal link. If you want to send us money just for the cost of hosting, or maybe to get me a better mic so I can stop star screaming. Or, Dustin, I had this idea. We need to get a couple of coffee mugs with the logo on it.
That would be legit.
I looked on like Vistaprint and stuff, but a lot of websites, they either confine you to one color, like the logo can only have one color.
Sure, yeah.
Or they have a minimum quantity, and the minimum quantity is always 144.
Oh yeah,
mugs. Wow. So
what would we do with 144 mugs?
I guess just give them away for free.
I guess so.
I mean, someone's out $300. So if you wanna support the show, that's the way you can do it. But overall, just subscribe, listen. Tell your friends. We're also on YouTube, HooperCast Pod on YouTube, and there's previous episodes on that channel going back a good ways also. Mm-hmm. So, okay, well, that's it. See you guys next week, where we'll talk about something. I will have finished BoJack Horseman Season 2 by the next time we record, so I might have thoughts on that and other stuff.
Yeah, I've got a few reviews ready to go, things that are still in theaters, and also some Netflix stuff. So I even watched a documentary.
Well, we'll have to find out what documentary it was next time on Dragon Ball Z. I mean, the HooperCast. Goodbye, everybody. Bye. Again, we're sorry, Ben Affleck.
We should close every episode with that. I'm sorry, Ben Affleck.